Gregtech New Horizons. If you have any sort of Minecraft modded knowledge, you've surely heard whispers of this modpack, whether it be diehard players recommending it to people first starting out, or from players who fear its name. Arguably one of the most famous modpacks of all time, with 10 years of development at its side and more than 3,000 quests and 5,000 hours to 100% this pack. Is it really as hard as everyone thinks it is? Yes, the answer is yes, and this burger is going to try and beat it, playing in sections of a full Minecraft year per video, at least until stuff starts taking a full in-game year to do. This pack is really difficult, but the difficulty comes from three main things. Number one being the length of this pack, as it's expected to take 1,300 plus hours to complete if you're making good pace. The second piece of difficulty comes from the huge emphasis on resource management as required by this pack. If you aren't prepared with enough resources to sustain your most recent major tech advancement, you'll have to backtrack and gather again. There's a pretty good example of this in the video itself when I start getting to the low voltage age. You also need to ensure you've automated the things you need to automate the things. Massive resource investment, going up to millions of items, even in mid-game. The third major difficulty is in all the additional BS you gotta deal with. The food system is overhauled, mobs can spawn with insane modifiers that lead to many one-shots, dark areas are pitch black, and it's 1.7.10. Most vanilla methods of obtaining items don't work, tons of recipes are changed to be tougher, and there are additional mobs that make the aforementioned darkness a true hell. Drowned creepers and vampire pigmen, anyone? The mod pack is very tough, but if you keep your temper, make plenty of backups for the minor mistakes that cost you your machines, and don't let the insane grind to get to you, you won't have as bad of a time. You may become like me, where I fall in love with a pack. That, or you're a masochist. Now that you know the overview of this mod pack, let's talk some base mechanics, from quests to world generation to the food overhaul. For quests, this mod pack is split into numerous ages and chapters, starting from base tutorials in the And So It Begins chapter, working all the way through ages like low voltage and extreme voltage to the end game, with the final goal to make the Stargate, allowing for travel to anywhere you want. More quest tabs go into specific things like bees, working with oil, nuclear nonsense, and even magic. These quests aren't holding your hand, they're more of a guide. Some quests are as simple as, hey, you know what oxygen is? Of course you do, go get some, you schlep, requiring problem solving and use of multiple tools or machines to finish quests. Some will take 5 minutes, and some will take actual hours. For world generation, this world uses its own custom method to ensure your world is unlike most others in modern Minecraft. Firstly, the world generation is unique to GTNH, using a realistic alpha type. No idea what that phrase means, but it looks pretty, I'll give them that. Secondly, ore generation is entirely different. Instead of ores being scattered all over the place with no set pattern, they're in set ore chunks. Every third chunk will be an ore vein, with a dominant ore, secondary ore, and a tertiary, with small ores of similar types being scattered about. Ores also use different names, so an iron vein will have stuff like chalcopyrite and pyrite. Confusing? Honestly, not really. The UI on the side tells you if you're in an ore chunk, so you can reasonably guess where more ore veins are once you find one. When you dig down to find one, you can right-click on an ore to see what vein you have. You can also use Journey Map to see ones you discovered if you need your 17th iron vein to destroy. The generation is the same across the 3 vanilla dimensions, so the nether and end dimension also have this generation of every third chunk with an ore vein, just different ores per dimension to keep a linear progression. The third big mechanic is the food system, until you get the healing axe and just skirt this mechanic entirely. In essence, this mechanic needs you to spice things up. After eating one food 4 times in a row, any of the same food afterwards would not only take longer to eat, but it'll give reduced hunger gains. To mitigate this, eat different foods, expand your palate. If you eat a food, you must eat 10 different foods to regain the ability to eat the first food. But what's the benefit? Well, nutrition and health. Not joking. Hitting the keybind, which is default to N, pulls up a nutrition menu, which gives buffs and debuffs based on the percents you have. You also gain additional hearts when you hit milestones on unique food eaten. There's a magnitude of food in this pack, so it's not too bad to keep the food unique throughout your journey, especially when you get automated farms going. There's a handful of other mechanics in this mod pack, but they're not relevant right off the get-go like these 3 are. Stuff like electricity will be explained when I get to the first age with it, the low voltage age. With this extremely lengthy introduction to this mod pack wrapped up, now Now to introduce myself and do all the usual YouTuber promotion crap. I am Bedrock Burger, your local #1 hater of Universes Beyond. Come on, we need actual magic sets for once. Do the usual things that all YouTubers tell you to do. Liking, subscribing, sharing, and doing all the Patreon and membership nonsense. Also, for you folks out there who would like to see more GTNH content from me, if this video gets either 1500 views or 200 likes by January 1st, I will make it a goal to stream a new GTNH run every day if able to, for the entirety of 2026, save for some holidays and Sundays, starting on January 4th. Also, make sure to check the description of this video for more links. Speaking of links, make sure to also check out today's sponsor, quotemakers.com. Roll the clip. Building or growing your small business, losing jobs because customers go with whoever replies first, your customers want answers instantly or they move on. With the Quote Makers, your website will give instant quotes, book jobs automatically, help you schedule an invoice, and make you look super professional, all in one place. I know this guy IRL and he built the site all on his own. It's a total game changer if you run a small business. Make sure to check out thequotemakers.com and use code BURGER50 at checkout for a whopper of a deal, 50% off for your first 3 months. Check it out today, and thank you Quote Makers and Omar for sponsoring this video. Not quite done with the intro. If you have any tips or advice that'll help me out in my run of this pack, make sure to watch this whole video before giving tips, as I'm already partially through recording of the next video, and I discuss what I've done in year 2 so far at the end of this video. Also, keep in mind, I'm stupid, and this video is all in GTNH version 2.7, not yet 2.8. I'm doing this run mostly blind, and I take things slow and steady at my own pace. No Thaumcraft Steel Nugget skips, no Division Signal or Healing Axe, no One Ring Dungeon Cheese, just raw dogging progression. In this video, I take on a full year of Gregtech New Horizons. So with all these mechanics and this very lengthy intro complete, let's get into this run. Make sure to grab a snack or 2 or 3, use the bathroom beforehand, and shut out all the voices in your head. Now, we begin this run, starting this massive adventure of tech and hardship with Day 0. A game crashed. Lesson learned, don't use curse words for this pack. Anyways, let's start this adventure again with Day 0. I spawned in a desert on a random seed, which wasn't the greatest spot to be. Sand is useful, but I could always come back here when I need it, and I will need it eventually. Staying clay in proximity of spawn was nice though. Opening the quest book to see what hell I just entered, the first quest in the book was the hardest challenge to complete in the pack. So challenging it took me the whole year to complete. Get 8 dirt. So hard. Whew, that was exhausting. I need a break already. The main thing that I needed at this very starting stage was gravel, as vanilla wood tools aren't able to mine anything. In this version, the first tool I could obtain was flint, and for that I'd need gravel, and a crafting table, which was conveniently made using flint from gravel. While looking for gravel, I stumbled onto cotton, which was actually an insane find this quickly. Very useful for early game when I start getting a farm going. You'll see, trust the process. The first night came on a lot quicker than I anticipated, so I dug myself a hidey hole and just read quests throughout the night, trying to figure out a good path to start. The main priority for this first bit was a bed, so I could skip nights in the very early game. Not that I would skip nights, honestly. In the next day, my travels continued. Along a riverbed, I finally found a gravel patch, hallelujah. I dug it all up with my fists, of course, and made another hidey hole in the evening to get to crafting. With 3 gravel, I could make 1 flint, and with 2 flint and 2 logs, I could make a crafting table. If you think this recipe changes, well, just wait until you see doors. Blech. I used some more of my flint to craft a flint pickaxe, which fortunately was the vanilla method of sticks and flint, no crazy screws or other tools yet. When I found a pretty good place to set up, I started on infrastructure, making an apple tree. yay! Over time, it would grow apples that I could harvest. There's a large number of trees like this in the pack from the Pam's Harvestcraft mod, some hard to get them most, looking at you, Cinnamon, but these trees would come in handy. My inventory was starting to get full with all the quest rewards and random crap, so I made a chest. In this mod pack, one chest is made with 4 logs, 4 planks, and a flint. A bit expensive, but it's early game Gregtech, what can you do? Inventory sorted, I made the rest of the flint tools for the quest. Axe, hose, and a shovel. I made myself a hidey hole, which would actually become my base later, and claimed an orange tree sapling from quest rewards. An important note about the area that I settled is that there's a few key things. 80% humidity, which is good for when I get a water tank. Additionally, there's a ton of stained and hardened clay around, which is a good thing for clay dust. It's a nice place and gets nicer as I play. For now though, it'll look ugly as sin. Humble beginnings. I mined a ton of cobblestone, then made my first furnace, the vanilla one made with 6 cobblestone and 3 flint, not just 8 cobblestone. Quest complete. I also then made a soft mallet out of planks and sticks, which is unironically extremely useful, just not right now. This mallet is used in a number of crafting recipes and can turn on or off machines later down the line. After a few more quests just to finish tutorial stuff, I got myself some torches, which was a blessing to get for free. With my new tools, I set a goal of crafting a bucket. Not an iron one, but a clay bucket. It's technically in the Stone Age for quest lines, which follows the age I'm in, but I hadn't unlocked the quests yet. We do a very tiny and minuscule amount of progression skipping here. It did help though, as now I had water. Also, side note, if you notice through quests I get these coins. These coins are used for buying different resources in its own tabs, like spawn eggs, and later on I could buy materials for circuits. They're primarily for servers and stuff, but they do help a lot. Now that I had a bucket, I finally went and crafted a bed, the final quest in the And So It Begins quest tab. The quest reward gave me a wooden door, which was actually a really good reward, as these things are total hell to make. Before I went into the Stone Age, however, I tied up a handful of loose ends, like planting some saplings and making a small farm to start on my food production. I planted some berry bushes, planted carrots, and planted potatoes. With a small farm set up, a hidey hole that I eventually call home, and a crafting table next to a furnace, it was time to advance to the next age, the Stone Age. Welcome to the Stone Age, probably the most important age in this pack, as you gain access to a large number of things that'll be used for most of the rest of the game, like Tinker's Tools and Coke Ovens. With this new age, it was time to really start getting going. I did need to nail down ore veins around me, as getting iron especially was important. The first vein I found when searching was coal, which is useful but not iron useful. Nearby when exploring, I found a small obsidian ruin with a chest that had a few materials. A few things in said chest were nice, but I didn't know what to do with them just yet. The best thing from this mini exploration, however, was a rubber tree. Very good find early, as rubber will be extraordinarily useful when I get to the next age. I planted it down at my base and would be regularly harvesting the wood throughout the whole year, just not mentioning it every time I do, because I do it a lot. I started work on a simple base, then made a mortar out of flint and stone. These could grind down materials in exchange for durability use, as do a lot of tools in this pack. And the next day, day 12, I started reorganizing everything, then made an actual base with oak, wood, and stone. No roof yet, that comes later. Probably. It was cozy and could store my junk, and that's what counted. I dug out a bit of space where my workshop would be, as I needed a dedicated space for my storage, tools, and machines. I gathered some more wood, then used a handful of mortars to make a stack of wood pulp. The wood pulp I was making was for a quest, as I wasn't really sure what I'd use it for. I then went to mining, looking for more ore veins. This is when I swapped it to peaceful as well, so no more mobs to harass me. I found a gravel patch, which is very nice, and a soapstone vein. No idea what a soapstone vein is. After getting more gravel, I completed the quest, Gravel the Gathering. There's a few of these gather quests in the Stone Age, but I've just skipped them for video flow. I found a magnetite vein, which has gold and iron inside, and then I found a full and proper iron vein. Sweet relief, an actual material that I couldn't mine yet. I would need to do a few things first, which is why in day 17 I started on making a Tinker's Construct stations. Paper was annoying as hell to make this early, but needed to make the parts builder, which allowed me to make tool parts. A stencil table, which let me make shapes for tools, and a tool station, which let me actually assemble and repair the tools themselves using parts I could make with materials, like cobblestone or iron. I finished it all off by making a pattern chest to store all those tool shaped patterns, of which there are a lot. I wouldn't make a tool just yet as I had a very important thing to begin, the coke oven. Coke ovens are multi-block structures, as in they require multiple blocks to assemble. It's in the name, multi-block. Each one has specific guidelines to create and turn on. For example, the coke oven needs 26 coke oven bricks, made in a 3x3x3 shape with a hollow center. They also cannot be placed with any part touching another coke oven or the world explodes. To make these coke oven bricks, I made a forming press, a tool that used durability to shape components into brick shapes. For the coke oven, I used sand, a brick wooden form, and clay balls to make unfired coke oven bricks, then smelted these unfired coke oven bricks into regular, normal, everyday Minecraft vanilla furnace to get coke oven bricks. 4 of these coke oven bricks can be combined to make, coke oven bricks. It took a bit for me to get enough to assemble the coke oven, as I ran out of coal to smelt the bricks halfway through, but after making 26 solid bricks, I stuck this big old thing in the floor of my base because I can. Why is this coke oven so important, you may ask? This coke oven is used to turn logs into charcoal, as you can't make charcoal the normal vanilla way. This is Gregtech, we don't do things the vanilla way, silly goose. These logs take a while to burn, but give creosote oil as a byproduct when cooking finishes. Creosote oil that can be used for so many things as I progress. I wouldn't right now, as in the early game it's just something you have to manage, either storing it away or just voiding it. I threw some logs into the coke oven, then made some stencils from Tinker's Construct, which I combined with flint to make flint tool parts. In the tool station, I put the parts together in their little funny slots to make flint tools. These flint tools are different from the ones I made earlier, as these ones are Tinker's tools. But what's the difference? Tinker tools are virtually indestructible, never fully breaking, but requiring repairs with the material they're made out of after they use all durability. Functionally indestructible. They also level up as you mine with them, gaining the ability to mine harder materials, mine faster, and even get modifiers like Fortune and Haste without needing enchanted books. The methods to get these tools do go up in complexity as this pack goes on, but flint tools are the easiest right now, cause it's the early game. Honestly, a game changer at this point of the pack, as I'm going from having to use 3 flint to make a pickaxe, to only using 1 flint to repair a pickaxe. Flint is still in dire need this early. With day 24 and the new flint pickaxe, I could mine iron to my heart's content. At least, the iron that was at base mining level. Some iron in this iron vein require the iron mining level tools to get, but I can mine other stuff that makes iron. Take a shot every time I say iron. While mining, I completed a quest to get 4 stacks of cobblestone, which rewarded me an iron pickaxe head. I used it to make a brand new Tinker's iron pickaxe and now could mine all the iron I wanted. But before returning to the mines like a child in the early 1900s, I got distracted by another thing I needed. Food. Always, always, always food in the other game. I started to work on a weird farm design that let water flow downwards to hydrate farmland and only use 1 bucket of water per row. It was definitely a weird design, but with water not being infinite, it was what I needed to do to save on this precious blue stuff. This farm design would only be temporary though, as frankly it sucked total doo-doo dog water to make and harvest when my house is on the side of a mountain and there's very little flat land with reasonable distance. Back to the mines, this time finding a tin vein to progress through quests. It's one of the 2 components to make bronze, so it's good to nail down an early source of it and stock up on a decent bit. The ore, cassiterite sand, can be smelted to make 2 ingots per ore, so I really didn't need much to complete the quest. Before you say I should have hammered the ore to make dust to double the amount, I didn't know it was a thing at the time. I was still a humble fledgling burger at the time of recording this footage and didn't know nothing except what the quest book told me. It keeps telling me to bomb an orphanage, not sure why. The other component to bronze is copper, but frankly this ore was nowhere to be found right now. To continue with early progression, I created a number of tools out of ingots and plates. I crafted a hammer out of 6 ingots and a stick, made a wrench using the hammer, then made some plates using the hammer to make a file, then used the file to make rods and ingots, and used the rods to make a screwdriver, then used said screwdriver and a hammer to make a saw blade, then a saw. We love microcrafting here, and we're going to be doing this a lot, so get cozy when I start to go on my usual 70-word run-on sentences. I mined a few gold ore and used these new tools I made to craft an ore finder wand. This item allowed me to put an ore into its slot and it'll make a loud and really annoying noise whenever it pings an ore vein close by, or veins containing said ore. Like if you're searching for iron, it'll ping gold veins because you can find magnetite ore within those veins, which processes into iron. I had no such luck finding copper, so instead I turned to quest completing. With day 34, I completed the quest to make a wood door, but all I did was pick up and place down the door I already had. I got some pressure plates from this quest, which are also tedious to make in the early game. I also made some gloves using leather and cotton. With cotton, I could make string, and with string and more cotton, I made woven cotton, which went into each glove, a lefty and a righty. It cost me some materials, but you can catch them for free. These gloves are needed to carry hot stuff without burning yourself, like lava. With day 36 and 37, I hunted copper with my ore finder wand, found a vein, and mined the absolute dickens out of it. This summary is so short because my footage those days corrupted and I wish toaster bath upon myself for it. Downside of longer videos, footage corruption. Happens all the time, I hate it. We love modern technology. Well, regardless, I made a small project wall, which was just me slapping signs on a dirt wall of stuff to do, completed the Making Bronze quest, and upgraded one of my chests to iron, increasing its storage capacity and allowing it to be placed next to other chests. I also made a drawer, my personal favorite method of storing a ton of crap. Each single drawer can hold 4,096 of a single item, and 2x2 drawers with 4 slots can hold 1,024 in each slot. We love drawers in this household and will recommend anyone who hates them for euthanasia by law of the Burgerverse Incorporated. We will not take drawer slander. Throughout the next few days, into day 40 I made more drawers for my junk, then started to work on a proper starter house. I had been harvesting rubber wood as much as I could, so I used it as a floor for what would become my workshop. I made a second floor to my home, thought about making a roof, then decided to goof off, making a crafting station with a crafting table and a saw. This crafting station is just a better crafting table, as it does the following. Function the first is that it reads contents of an inventory next to it, allowing you to pull from said inventory to craft. Chests, water tanks, machines, you name it. Like a mini ME system from AE2. Function the toost is that it keeps contents when you exit the UI. Have all components except one? Well, you can leave the stuff there and it'll keep them there. I'd never use a crafting table again in this run, only stations. Easy to make and really useful no matter where in the early game you are. Using this station and 52 iron ingots, I made 52 iron rods for a rather important new multi-block I wanted, the water tank. This quest was in a new tab, the multi-block goals tab, a multi-block tab, about multi-blocks. I wonder what's all in it, probably not multi-blocks. Anyways, the quest wanted me to make a tree tap, which I could use on rubber wood trees to get sticky resin. I could also get said sticky resin by just cutting down the tree, so I had plenty at this point. Like the coke oven, this multi-block needed 26 water tank siding blocks placed in a 3x3x3 structure with a hollow center. This multi-block made water for free. Kinda. Remember how I mentioned the 80% humidity in the biome I settled in earlier? Humidity level increases the amount of water generated from this structure, with 0% in deserts making absolutely no water at all, and my 80% making water at a really solid rate. Of course, rain increased water generated, and being inside decreased water generated. Free water is free water though, and the structure could hold up to 400 buckets of it. Weirdly enough, this amount of water wouldn't be enough for this video. Production rate of water ended up being too slow for when I get to future ages. With day 47, it was time to begin on an even more important multi-block for this run, the Tinker's Construct Smeltery. Let's begin the grind with grout, which needed a bucket of water, sand, gravel, and clay dust made from clay. I needed 162 of this grout, so I decided to stock up first and do a side quest. The side quest I was after was to make a backpack for the materials. To start, I made a drying rack, which can dry materials after an amount of real time. I used the leather and cotton to make bound leather, then set it on the racks to dry for a whopping 10 minutes. Real lifetime. In the meantime, I crafted a number of unfired sear bricks using the same brick wood frame from earlier to get all the grout. Lots of grout. So much grout. I am grout. When the tan leather completed, I used it to first make a sleeping bag, then a digger's backpack. The sleeping bag let me sleep anywhere without resetting my spawn point, and the digger's backpack auto-collected dirt, stone, sand, and materials like it when you harvested them. 15 extra slots at the cost of 1 inventory slot is always welcome. There's more backpacks like this for different materials that I make over time, but this one was a great start. Back to the smeltery now. I'd use all the seared stone bricks to make all the blocks needed. Seared brick blocks for the overall structure, a smeltery controller to insert the materials and rearrange molten metals, a smeltery tank to store lava to actually melt down metals, and a drain and a basin to get materials to form. And that was it for now. I'd make the faucet later on, I just wanted to start mining now. With more iron smelting, I made an iron axe in day 52. Took a bit, but we got there. 2 iron tools. Yippee! I worked on my base a bit, expanding further to make room for more storage. Constant problem, storage is, until we get the glory of Applied Energistics 2, but that requires the moon. And then we have the problem of Applied Energistics 2. The iron I had collected allowed me to make a second water tank siting. I was prepared ahead of time for when I got to the next age, as I need my water production to be pretty high, at least in the scope of the Stone Age. I put it next to my first one, of course, 5 feet apart cause it's not gay. Bet you can never guess what I did after that. If you guessed playing Nicobolas Dragon God, Amanatu the Fate Shifter, Oath of Teferi, and Ugin the Spirit Dragon to assemble an infinite combo to win the game against a deck where every card starts with a letter Q, you'd be wrong. What I really did was go mining for copper and tin. A lot of copper, a lot of tin. Enough copper to last me about 50 in-game days, and enough tin to last me 51 in-game days, which in the grand scheme of things isn't really a lot, but it counts for something. More bronze when I get there. Back to smeltery work with day 61, and I didn't have enough materials like I thought, so I had to went out and gather some more. I did exactly as I said in the last sentence, then built the whole darn thing up. A smeltery is made of a 3x3 base of seared bricks and a ring of more blocks, which includes the control of the drain around the base and 1 block up. I added another layer of bricks above the first ring, as more bricks added means more things I can melt down at once. Needed lava in the seared tank to actually do the process of melting. It's not like you can rage bait the metals into having a meltdown, unfortunately. One of the many ore veins I've mined at so far had lava nearby, so wait, not this one. This one. So I grabbed some lava into the seared tank, which saves contents, by the way. I was missing the casting table though, so I made that. When I start to smelt stuff, this casting table would let me cast stuff. It's in the name, casting table. To use the table, I needed molds, and to make molds, I needed to melt down aluminum and copper to make aluminum brass. In this version I'm in, aluminum is needed. It's kind of weird, honestly, because aluminum is really important in MV, but you can't get the MV aluminum until you're at MV. I did fortunately have some aluminum ore berries on hand, which could be grown on crop sticks and harvested, then melted to get the aluminum I would need. But speaking of aluminum, I need to start storing my creosote somewhere. 66 days in, it builds up quick with all the charcoal I've made, so I can smelt nonsense ores. There's always a solution to everything in this pack, and this pack actually had one for me, a Railcraft multi-block iron tank. These are a bit obnoxious to make at this stage in the game, but later on will get easier. I made 2 valves, a bunch of walls, and glass to complete the quest. The minimum size of them was 3 wide, 3 long, and 4 tall, and the max is 9 wide, 9 long, and 8 tall, with a few restrictions such as the diameters can only be odd numbers. I forget this at least twice, by the way. These tanks are actually insane, and frankly I'd rather spam these everywhere than use single block tanks. They look prettier and actually outputs items from the bottom if you put your valve on the bottom. Just this minimum iron tank holds 576 buckets of fluid. There's more tiers to these tanks, like steel and aluminum, that hold more, and each tier is doubled, all the way to the last one. Is it more efficient to use the single blocks? Yes. Do I want to? Nope. The coke oven can't auto-output liquids, unfortunately, so I had to manually do it every time. At the time, I didn't know about the faucet redstone clock trick, so I just empty manually until I get LV pumps. I did need to move my coke oven, and while doing so, I got a trophy for making a coke oven. Not sure why it didn't drop initially. I did want a second coke oven, so I did that. I made a second one. You gotta start the spam early, kiddos. More charcoal, more creosote, more work. I wanted to let charcoal and creosote stock up, so with day 70 I went exploring near spawn. Not really sure what I was looking for, but fortunately I found a village, and this village had an incomplete smeltery. Some spawned with them, so I greedily stole all of it and checked out what the village had, like some apiaries for bees. When I return home on day 75, I use the borrowed smeltery bricks to upgrade my smeltery, adding more smelting capacity. No, I will not make one going from bedrock to world height, at least not in this one. Another water tank has hit the burger base. I was starting to prepare for the next age, so I wanted to nail down a ton of ores around. Copper, kaolinite, oil sands, iron, more iron, lapis, salt, magnetite, tin, redstone, gold, lapis, even more iron. One important vein that I was missing though was diamond. I'd need it for my industrialization needs, so I used coins to buy a single ore of diamond from the quest book that I could slap into my ore finder wand. But I had no such luck, even when just wandering around. Not too long after though, when I was just exploring, I finally found a dang diamond vein. Roughly 5 days exploring to find a single vein. Plot twist, there's more that are closer, but I didn't find them in this year. I wanted to destroy this whole vein, but I needed better tools. With the aluminum brass, I casted a pickaxe and shovel mold, then used them to make said parts out of bronze. More durability, higher mining level, more mining speed. They're always worth the upgrades. And speaking of upgrades, miner's backpack. Like the digger's backpack from earlier, but auto collects ores instead of blocks. I'd moved my coke ovens, then made a few more tools. A wire cutter, skipping progression a tad, and a scoop, which can grab bees from beehives. There's quests to make these later, but I just wanted to set up for when I get to bees later on. As in, probably in year 3 for bees. Not really sure, the bees take a while to really get going. With day 89, I crafted up an iron furnace, which smelts faster than a regular furnace. Not too much faster, but just enough. For the next few days, I gathered random materials to make even more coke ovens. Always can use more coke ovens. Right now, they just sat outside, as my mindset until I start building my infrastructure out was just to throw crap everywhere and rebuild it all later. So the coke ovens stay outside, away from my precious workshop, to be a nice home for the nightmares stalking me through my days in Gregtech. Another coke oven has hit the burger base, and another 9/11 joke has hit the burger video. How many more can I fit? Wouldn't you like to know, weather boy? After a while of grind, on day 99 I placed the final coke oven for now, up to a whopping 10 coke ovens. And why yes, emptying them was a total pain. Dear God, why did I not have the ability to see the future and know how to do the redstone clock and faucet thing? To do a bit more setup for later, I made a bunch of kitchen tools so I can craft a lot more foods. Some foods so I could do the healing axe quest and skirt the food mechanic entirely. I made a saucepan, a pot, a rolling pin, a mixing bowl, and a skillet. Quest complete. With these new tools, I made some new food, fried eggs and potato cakes. Yum yum. Guess what? Another water tank. At this point, I believe myself as prepared as I could for the next age. I had plenty of tin, plenty of iron, plenty of copper, plenty of existentials dread for my future, and plenty of food. Food? Food. Plenty of food. All the way on day 105. With the bronze I acquired, some bricks, and an iron furnace, I crafted up a simple coal boiler. The first machine to kickstart the Steam Age, the next age in this mod pack with some crazy good upgrades. But first, before we get to the Steam Age, a small intermission, because I know y'all need a break from my crazy ramblings. Into the Steam Age we go, where I unlock so many new things. New machines, new ingots, new drip, and so much more. This age takes me quite a lot of time as I just kind of chill and progress slowly. From the quests, to get into Steam Age, I get hollow glasses, which let me see items in containers. Really useful actually, and I never take them off whatsoever. Even interacts with NEI search, which is nice and helps to search containers for that one item you need. Speaking of containers, I needed more storage as always, so I dug out a storage room of sorts. Realistically, it was just a cave extension where I slapped down chests to get away from my drawers and stuff. With the new chest room, I felt ready to get further into Steam. I connected my first boiler to my water supply, but didn't power it up yet as I had no machines to actually use the steam. I made 2 more coal boilers and connected them to my water line, then made my first steam machine, a steam furnace. It used steam to cook items like a regular furnace, but slightly faster and used steam as fuel. Realistically, I should have spammed these steam furnaces and saved on fuel usage, but I did not, and it probably cost me a lot of coal in the grand scheme of things. What I did spam was more coal boilers, making more steam to fuel my devious designs. By devious designs, I mean making an alloy smelter, which was a machine that could make alloys out of ingots. Like, I could now make bronze a lot easier, just by slapping tin and copper in the alloy smelter, instead of doing the dance of grinding it down, combining them, and then smelting. This is the big thing that makes this pack nice and rewarding and offers a smooth progression. New things that allow you to skip previous steps, or machines that offer new ways to make things that used to be a total pain. The first alloy I'd need to make for progression was red alloy, a combination of copper and redstone dust. The only thing though is that I had no redstone. I must be a Minecraft YouTuber with 1 million subscribers with how I love mines. This time I actually did some minor ore processing, using a hammer to break the redstone down into crushed redstone, then using a hammer again to turn it into impure dust, then tossing said impure dust into a cauldron to wash it into good old redstone dust, the vanilla kind. With 1 copper ingot and 4 redstone dust in the alloy smelter, I could make red alloy ingots, not to be confused with redstone alloy ingots. Those come later. The first thing to make using this red alloy is a piston, which has a pretty brutal crafting recipe in this pack. Bunch of plates, rods, screws, and a red alloy plate. You know how I said earlier that I didn't know too much about this pack when I started playing? Yeah, I should have made about 5,000 red alloy ingots. I do go through a substantial amount of it throughout the year and even into my year 2. Oy. With the piston, I wanted to make a crazy good machine, a macerator. There was an issue though. I need diamonds. But with my bronze tools, I had a high enough mining level to go grab some of the delicious blue gems. So you know what time it is. Burger artificially increasing runtime of this video with a mining montage. These diamond veins also have coal in them, so I had fuel to actually smelt the diamonds. Yes, smelt the diamonds into diamonds. Minecraft. With the diamonds, I can do a few things now. For one, make a macerator. Now, I didn't need a hammer to crush ores for doubling, I can just smack them into the machine. The second thing I can use diamonds for is fuel in my coal burners. It's a weird thing to do, putting diamonds for fuel instead of coal, but frankly I don't really need my diamonds that much outside of this macerator right now, so the rest of the diamonds can go into storage. If there's something I can do with these diamonds aside from division sigil nonsense, let me know. Really not sure the uses. Diamond chests in LV, I guess? I didn't do that though in this year. I also went ahead and made a steam compressor to add to my machine roster. It compresses stuff, most things, into block form. Both the most useful and least useful machine I've built. The next machine I made was actually a stupidly useful one, as it followed the Gregtech thing of more efficiency, the Forge Hammer. Normally, to make all the hundreds of plates I've made so far, it needed 2 ingots for 1 plate. With the Forge Hammer, it had 2 new functions. It could use 3 ingots to make 2 plates, saving me half an ingot per craft, and I could also take crushed ores and turn them into impure dust much quicker than macerating them again. You'd think that by the end of this year I'd have a full ore processing setup all done. Well, you'd be wrong. I am not a smart burger. Of course, when wandering this wonderful world while humming about Red Roses 2, I realized that I was totally wasting so much steam by not having a backup tank to collect excess steam. Up to this point, I just let it sit inside pipes, so it'd run out quite a lot. Day 127 had me make a new minimum size tank, as the materials are so unbelievably annoying to make right now. 4 plates and 4 screws to make 2 walls was a bit much, not to mention the bars to the valves. With this new backup tank made, I rearranged some stuff, then set my sights on the next big project of this video, the bricked blast furnaces. It required so many materials that I had to gather. From 1,000 clay to make over 400 bricks, this would be a lengthy grind for this point in the pack. Probably the biggest time sink in the early game, but definitely worth it. Maybe the EBF is more, I don't know. But why are we making this brick blast furnace? Steel. Simple. Steel can be made through 2 ways in Steam Age. Either I do the Thaumcraft Nugget duplication skip, or I make brick blast furnaces. Of course, I had no idea that the Nugget dupe existed at this time, so the blast furnaces was my method of steel creation. So to grinding we go, making iron furnaces, making so many bricks, and taking ages to smelt, even with diamonds being essentially infinite fuel. So much gypsum and calcite. Good lord, these are a tertiary thing in veins. Ugh. The bricks especially took so much time, as I had to first use a frame to make unfired bricks, then smelt said unfired bricks into vanilla bricks. Before you say to use the other recipe for bricks in the alloy smelter, do note that I don't have steel yet, so I can't make the ingot mold for that recipe. I can't do that recipe, so I must wait. Gotta do it the hard way. To get calcite, they're found in lapis veins, and I actually had a handful of these veins around. And for gypsum, it's found in basaltic mineral veins. I did actually have one of these veins a good distance away, so way back in the mines with our pickaxe swinging side to side we go, gathering the needed materials from their respective areas. Clay from rivers, gypsum, and calcite from their veins, motivation from silly cat posters, MTG Goldfish podcast in the background, and yeah, we got this. It took me way until day 137, but I finally made the components to the bricked blast furnace. Fire clay bricks, which I combined with wet concrete buckets, an incredibly annoying craft, to make fire bricks. I needed 36 of them and the brick blast furnace controller to complete the full build. This multi-block, like the coke oven and water tank, has requirements to form. This one needs to be 4 blocks tall, 3 blocks wide, 3 blocks long, with the middle blocks being hollow, with an opening like a chimney. With iron ingots and a coal-type material, steel would begin smelting. Slowly, very slowly, painfully slow. If this was a Magic the Gathering tournament, steel would be disqualified for slow play. It's that slow. Over time, I'd use coal coke blocks to bulk smelt iron into steel, first making coal, then throwing it into a coke oven to make coal coke, then compressing 9 of them into a block using the compressor. 10 ingots per 2 blocks versus 2 coal coke per ingot, so a savings of 2 coal coke pieces overall. A savings in materials, but a loss of time, as this recipe took 2,400 seconds to complete. That's 40 minutes, folks, in real game time. I personally cannot wait for the cheaper steel recipe when I get to late low voltage age. Ugh. Now that I'm roughly 50 hours into this pack and had steel, I decided to finally go to the nether. The recipe to make a flint and steel was, of course, Gregtified, needing a good chunk of steel. I did have a few ingots from exploring, so I wouldn't have to wait a super long time. In this version, I needed to make the flint and steel for the quest. In the new pack version, you just need 10 obsidian. I made the portal, lit it, and entered the nether. I hope there's no Jack Black in here. Of course, when I spawned into the nether, I turned around and immediately went home, as I was not ready for the hell that is the Gregtech nether, even with no mob spawns because I'm on peaceful, for now. My next project while steel cooked was to just kill a bunch of time. By killing time, I mean redoing my farm entirely from the ground up. The starter design was not working and really annoying to harvest. This new design I dug down into the earth, making 5x5 platforms for a row of crops in each. I was aiming to get the healing axe before low voltage age, and I needed so many different kinds of food to get it. To explain to newer folks what the healing axe is, There's a quest available right from the get-go where you can submit 6 different types of big meals and 13 different gardens. You've seen these gardens around in this video, but they're like loot bags on the ground that have multiple crops within when punched. To pick them up and submit the quest, just right-click. They do grow over time if left alone though. I had been steadily submitting gardens I found, keeping any extras, so for this farm I cracked open the extra ones, turning the crops into seeds then planting them in rows. Remember folks, crops go faster when planted in rows, not big clumps. It's in the code for the vanilla game itself. Don't trust me? It's okay, I'm inside your walls. With the new farm all done and looking much better, I had enough steel now to upgrade a ton of things around my base. To start, I upgraded my silly bronze tools into steel tools, much higher in all stats and a better upgrade than the iron to bronze upgrade was. I also went ahead and upgraded both my macerator and some coal boilers to their high pressure variants, increasing their production speed but also increasing costs. The boiler used more water to make steam, and the macerator used more steam to complete operations. Still in a steel frenzy, I set my sight on new tools, the hammer, excavator, and the lumber axe. Making the tool forge to actually assemble these parts was quite the journey, as I needed a silly amount of aluminum melted in the smeltery. In this version of GTNH, it's not obsidianite I need, but alumite. The alumite used aluminum, a lot more aluminum. I most certainly did not have enough, but I could start on it. I did need a plate to cast molten aluminum brass on, and started genuinely tweaking when trying to make a stone plate, as there's no indication, as far as I'm aware, of the fact that I needed 8 cobblestone to make a stone plate in the part builder. I just assumed it was 1 of each material like all the other parts I had made so far. Genuinely tweaking for about 15 minutes until I asked a friend about it. My friend fortunately answered kinda quickly, so I made a stone plate and casted a plate mold, then used it to make a large alumite plate. 1 of 2 plates, by the way. The tool forge is expensive. The first tool I would make was the hammer, made out of a ton of parts. 2 steel plates, a steel hammerhead, and a steel tough rod. Do note that each of these need to be cast, by the way. It took a total of 27 ingots to make, if my math is right, but this hammer was absolutely worth it. It mined stone and ores in a 3x3 area, so 9 blocks at the cost of 1 durability, and it was only slightly slower than the normal steel pickaxe. Definitely, absolutely, 100% worth it. With this hammer, I demolished a diamond vein, mostly for coal and diamonds. Graphite is optional. After this mining, I always needed more steel as is usual with this mod pack, so I started work on more brick blast furnaces. The solution to not enough steel is to make more things that make the steel. While making the next furnace, I did a small side quest to make a lumber axe out of steel, which was an axe that mined a full tree if able. If not able, it just mined like a hammer in a 3x3. Made chopping the rubber tree farm I had much easier. Trees in this pack have extra fast leaf decay, so it was even easier. We love quality of life. After a lot more grind, another brick blast furnace has hit my base. These structures can wall share thankfully, which meant they could be connected on one side to save on bricks. There's a good amount of structures that can wall share, primarily Gregtech machines. Coke ovens and water tanks unfortunately cannot. For more casting in the smeltery, I needed lava to melt the ingots and aluminum ore berries down to molten metals, so I made an ultra low voltage fluid tank, which could hold 32 buckets of liquid. To get this lava, I'd go back to a meteor that I had found earlier in this run with lava around it, but for the first 100 days or so of this run, I was using CurseForge to play this pack, and it was not good at all. Don't play CurseForge if you can, and I actually ported my world to the Technic Launcher improperly, so I lost my map and waypoints. Hindsight 2020 used Prism Launcher and Gregtech New Horizons. So, unfortunately, I lost the location of the meteor, so I just started exploring again. I was also hunting diamond veins while exploring using an ore finder wand. Did you know boats used to just explode into sticks and planks when you hit a block? Unfortunately, I didn't find pretty much anything. No lava, so I used what low lava I had to make an ingot mold using steel. So in both an alloy smelter and smelter, I could make things shaped like ingots, so stuff like bricks and actual ingots themselves. I also made a ball mold, a gear mold, a nugget mold, and a block mold. Wait, I made a gear mold? Huh? Quest complete for a bunch of molds. I then crafted up a steam extractor, which could extract shit from a butt, but most importantly it could extract rubber from rubber logs, which I had been harvesting and accumulating for the whole 183 days I've been playing. I also immediately upgraded this extractor to the high pressure variant. Note to self though, next run of this mod pack I'll probably skip these high pressure variants, as these high pressure variants just save time really, a bit too much steel and bricks to invest into them. Double the speed is nice, but realistically I could just make 2 machines and save steel and bricks. Speaking of steel, it was time to do the Gregtech theme yet again of spam machines and make a ton of materials over time. My goal right now is to make 2 more bricked blast furnaces, bringing the total to 4. Took me 5 in-game days to get all the materials for doubling my blast furnaces, which was actually quicker than the first one. About 8 days to take versus 5 days. With these 4 brick blast furnaces made and wall shared, it's time to talk about another mechanic of this pack that was quickly deciding to become relevant despite my minimal and non-existent efforts to prevent it. Pollution. I forgot to turn it off. In essence, pollution is generated when machines run. Coke ovens and actually regular furnaces make pollution, but it's nowhere near enough to be noticeable. These brick blast furnaces produce 10 times the pollution of coke ovens every second, 20 pollution per second versus 200 per second. Too much pollution causes areas to become very foggy and even poison you. If the pollution gets high enough, it quite literally destroys farmland, turning dirt to sand. It does go down naturally over time if the pollution machine is off, but this is Gregtech, baby, screw the environment. I could make a hazmat suit, but instead I took the easier option to deal with pollution, putting my blast furnaces in hell where they belong. Up next, you know how it goes, on to the next project. Time to actually work on ore processing, speeding up my ore doubling. I had 2 high pressure macerators at this point, but these were too slow for the massive amount of ores I had been gathering and processing. Fortunately for me, there's a solution to every problem that this mod pack presents, and I love that about this pack. This one is the multi-block macerator, newly added in the 2.7.2 update that I was playing. It's a big ol' thing and will take a good amount of material investment, but it runs 8 recipes at once at a much faster speed. I needed a whopping 156 bronze plates according to my math, which my math was probably wrong, but I got to work anyways. By got to work, I mean slap a stack of bronze in my forge hammer and just do other things while it worked. This multi-block also needed some weird metal called tumbaga, made from combining copper and gold in an alloy smelter, or just making the dust from copper and gold dust. I made a steam hatch, where steam power goes in to power the machine, then the steam grinder block, which was the controller for the multi-block I was constructing. I made all the plated blocks, then the output and input buses for the multi-blocks. I put this new contraption upstairs, a bit out of the way. The multi-block fully formed on my first try, which was weird for me, but it could run up to 8 recipes at once, equating out to roughly 125% more speed increase over the high pressure single blocks. Only 60% more steam consumption though, which in reality is nothing. Ore processing was now so much faster, as it cuts the single stack processing at about 20 seconds per item to now up to 4 stacks processing at 8 items in 20 seconds. Makes no sense when I explain it that way, but it's faster, that's for sure, just trust me. I'd carve out space for more of these Steam multi-blocks, as there's a multi-block variant for every single block machine in Steam Age, but would never actually build another. Probably not a good idea to skip them in hindsight, but hey, as I said earlier in this video, I'm not the smartest person in the world. And yeah, I'm currently about 130 days into year 2, I do regret this. With this new macerator, back to the mines. I had a goal to connect up all my ore veins via an underground tunnel, but it didn't work out too hot. Too much hammer durability used, too much cobblestone to throw into a drawer. I did mine another full iron vein and made a new plan. 4 more bricked blast furnaces. I'd need a ton of steel when I got to low voltage, as that age needed so much of it. Just an absurd amount of steel. Plus, I had other plans for steel to come later on. I gathered a ton of materials, then lost all the footage of me assembling the next 4 furnaces and loading them with a ton of iron ingots. Technology, am I right? all the way to day 224, I went to the nether to mine up a sulfur vein, as sulfur was the next material needed for progression. With the raw rubber dust I have been making from extracting the rubber logs, I could throw the sulfur dust and the rubber dust into an alloy smelter to make rubber bars. I was just about ready to make the push into the next age, low voltage, but I had a few more things to tick off. The first, a base overhaul, and the second, the healing axe. The base overhaul, which I started in day 226, went all the way until day 235, but frankly, time well spent. Now to the next problem, creosote. As of now where I was, I had just given up on emptying these coke ovens, as it was a pain to manually do it, taking upwards of 10 minutes to empty all 10 coke ovens into my iron tank. I had intended to use the creosote as the basis for my power in low voltage and beyond, but I wasn't making enough, couldn't make enough, and couldn't process it into anything resembling a good fuel source when more power options opened to me in low and medium voltage ages. Hindsight is a wonderful thing. Anyways, I decided to make a max-size steel tank to fit all the creosote I was producing. This was still before I had the cheaper recipe to make the walls for the tank, so it was a pain in the butt. So much of a pain that I downsized the tank to 5 wide, 5 long, and 6 tall after spending way too much time on it. To get distracted from the tank construction again, I made a steel plate mold for the alloy smelter and put rubber bars in it to make rubber sheets. With said rubber sheets, I made probably the best upgrade to my own sanity in this entire run so far. Piston boots. Whew, these things are nice. These insane movement tech boots did a few nice things, gave you a 3-block jump boost, increased the fall distance before taking damage, and gave a single block step assist. Now I no longer had to mash the space button to jump. Oh, it felt so nice. Of all the I'm never taking these off accessories in this pack, this is one I'd probably never give up until nano armor, which was all the way in high voltage tier, so another 2 full tiers to go. We love small quality of life things that make runs slightly more tolerable. Now, back to work on the steel tank. In day 248, I finally placed the last block down to form the new steel tank to hold all my creosote. It could hold a max of 5.6 million millibuckets of the good yellow stuff, which I think, if I'm doing my math right, is something like 5.6 thousand buckets. Was this a total waste of steel? Yes, absolutely. Was I still happy with the result? Also yes, I still use it even where I am now, which is about a third into year 2. This steel tank marks one of the 2 pre-LV projects done. Now to the other one, the healing axe. I had all but 2 gardens found for the quest and had 0 of the big 6 food complete, so I targeted the gardens first. I actually found the nether gardens unexpectedly easy, as some were just growing right next to my portal the entire time somehow. The water gardens did take a bit to find, as lakes are weirdly rare to generate, but I took a break from searching to start making the big foods. The first was a beef Wellington, made from beef or tofu, spinach, any mushroom, and dough. The dough is a whole process to do, but the rest was easy. I also did have an animal farm now, I just skipped it over when I made it during the base overhaul. I had already submitted some beef Wellingtons from Quest Awards earlier, so I only made 15 in one batch, then submitted it to the quest. They are consumed by the quest, so I don't get to eat them unfortunately. 1 out of 6 complete. The next one was the sausage in bread, made with maple sausage, bread, onion, and ketchup. Remember the kitchen tools I made earlier? Came in clutch here. 2 out of 6 submitted. Next, the Supreme Pizza. This one was a bit more complex, as I needed to make a pizza first. Simple enough, the issue was mainly in the cheese making, but that wasn't so bad. 3 of 6 completed and submitted. The next one I aimed to get was the Rainbow Curry, which for some reason wanted flowers from various biomes, even the nether. So during the day, I'd explore the overworld to look for these flowers, but at night, I'd explore the nether. On day 257, just over 100 days left, I found the final flower I needed, the blue orchid. One small issue then reared its dyed pierce-nose high-calorie head, as I had no rice for the rice curry. Now I was actually forced to stop putting off the water garden hunt. Why yes, I did forget that water gardens could be crafted, how did you know? There was a spot nearby where I was hoping to find some gardens, so I made myself a rubber dinghy, a boat that wouldn't explode into a trillion pieces when I hit a small rock. So the next day, I set sail not too far away from my base and was actually welcomed by multiple water gardens, more than enough to complete the quest. I gathered them all greedily, and there was way more than the quest needed. I then lost my boat almost immediately, then returned home to work on more of the food for the healing axe. Breaking a water garden gave me more rice, thankfully, so I bone mealed to get enough to make the rainbow curry. That's 4 of 6 done, 2 to go. Next is the hearty breakfast, another easy one honestly. Toast, eggs, any juice, and potato cakes was significantly easier to assemble than the last food item. That's 5 out of 6. Now to the final food, the delighted meal, the longest of the crafts. It needed a deluxe cheeseburger, which was a few steps of its own, fries, and a smoothie. The smoothies were made with snowballs and any fruits, so it was not bad actually. The fries was just potatoes and salt. Easy. That makes 6 out of 6 complete and submitted. Now to the final part of the quest. Tofu. Ugh. No corporation here. I needed 2 stacks of silken tofu and 2 stacks of firm tofu. To make tofu, I used soybeans and water, then used a hammer to turn the tofu into firm tofu, and used a rolling pin to turn the firm tofu into silken tofu. It took probably 10 minutes to do all this, and it was kinda awful. At the very end of day 260, I submitted the tofu and was rewarded with one of the best items in the entirety of the game for this mod pack, the healing axe. Worth the grind, as it just restored hunger when held in your main hand or offhand if you're in 2.8. The downside though is that you lose nutrition, but it goes down to only 50%, so frankly I didn't care as it just let me skip the entire food mechanic. So I was happy. I do have a goal of eating just about one of every Pam's food in year 2, but that could wait. Fortunately, this axe could also heal living things in exchange for hunger. Very overpowered, and I love overpowered. And now, with this axe obtained, I had everything checked off my list for things to do before low voltage, so now it was time to push for the next stage and get heavily punished for my hubris. With wire cutters, I made wires from red alloy, tin, and copper, using sticky resin, which I had a ton from chopping down rubber trees, charcoal dust, copper wires, and fine copper wires, which was copper plates with a wire cutter. I made resistors. The goal right now was to make my first circuit, the first of probably millions I would make while I go through Gregtech New Horizons. Each tier of electricity has its own circuit, made from 3 of the previous tier's circuit. The base one is the LV circuit, made from a bunch of annoying crap. I finally crafted my first LV circuit, which was a pain, but then I made an LV hull, the base of all LV machines, then paused for a bit to goof off. I do that a lot. The next project while goofing off was the Railcraft Multi-Block Steam Furnace, a small furnace that uses steam to smelt 9 items at once. Very helpful for ore processing, and later I'd hook it up to my macerator for instant smelting and doubling for maceration. Slow starts here, but it works. The furnace needed me to make 2 sets of the blocks, as it's a 2x2x2 multi-block. It took a ton of steel, which I did fortunately have, and it was totally worth it. 9 items smelted at once to cut down on the processing time was incredible. All it took was a bit of steam, which I was producing at a decent rate, but not enough. I'd work on my steam production later on, as now is the time to move on to the next age, low voltage. The age where electricity is first introduced and the first major challenge of the run is presented, the electric blast furnace. In day 267, I crafted up my first steam turbine, marking the beginning of the low voltage age. With the advent of the low voltage age, I swapped my game to normal difficulty, so mobs can now spawn. Now, to start to ramble and try to explain electricity in this mod pack the best I can, which is not very well. Essentially, power in this pack is split into tiers from low voltage all the way to UMV power, whatever that means. Each tier up is 4 times the power, so a steam turbine in MV makes 4 times more than an LV steam turbine, while an HV steam turbine made 16 times more power than an LV one. Power generators like this steam turbine make a certain amount of EU per tick, which is sent in packets, called amps, to machines using cables. Machines and cables can only accept power of equal or lower tiers, so an HV machine can accept HV power, MV power, or LV power, but it'll explode if it receives EV power, as EV is a tier above. Not kidding, machines do explode if improperly powered. At LV, all power generator options make 32 EU per tick. At MV, it's 128, and HV, it's 512, and so on, just multiply by 4 each time. There are ways to upscale packets of power to a higher tier, and downscale to lower ones using transformers. I wouldn't need one currently, as I'm still on LV. Recipes using machines take AU power to complete operations in a specific amount of time. As you go up tiers, recipes use the same amount of power, but just take less time. I think I explained power good enough? Not sure, roast me in the comments. This is how I understand power though. To make my life 100 times easier with all the microcrafts ahead of me, I made a forestry work table, a crafting table that both had an internal inventory and could save recipes within to craft easier. It would make my life so much easier when crafting all these darn circuits. In day 269, nice, I made my first LV machine, the wire mill. Instead of using wire cutters for every single little wire craft I had done, I could instead shove the materials in this wire mill, set it to the circuit that I needed, and it would make the wires for free, just using power. This was how early LV worked. You made machines that cut crafting costs way down, only costing power and time. The next thing I did was make one of the biggest upgrades of this age, the bending machine. I love this thing. You remember how the forge hammer was 2 ingots for 3 plates? This bending machine does 1 ingot for 1 plate, which is a major material saver. Also, sometimes due to the weird ratio that it made, I just had plates lying around, so that fixed that issue. I can now make exactly what I need. The next machine that I made was the lathe, a machine that could take ingots and make them into rods. This machine was really slow and used up a ton of power, but the upside to it was that it gave a slight refund on materials when it completed an operation. I'd say the time was worth it to save more materials. Another thing at the start of LV was the line of "You're gonna hate this" quests, which introduced crafting components for machines, like the LV piston or the LV pump. They are all used in crafting recipes, but also had a use when placed on machines or pipes if they were able to. The LV pump, for instance, was as much of a game changer as Ristic Study, as I could place it on a pipe and it could pull or push liquids. You know how I've been manually pulling creosote from the coke ovens? Well, not anymore. At least for one coke oven. I still had a bit to go before giving each one a pump. The next machine that I made was the LV centrifuge, which was another piece of the ore processing puzzle, as it could process impure dust into their pure form and give a chance at giving a secondary byproduct. It was pretty slow though, but so worth it. I had been harvesting slime trees for a bit, as I got a slimy sapling from a quest reward much earlier, and I could use this centrifuge to get a bunch of raw rubber dust a lot easier from the slimy logs. It also made glue without the horses, which was a plus. The next machine I'd work on was also a huge game changer within early LV, the assembler. This is how early LV works. It's just basically a list of machines to make. This assembler required a ton of materials, most of which I was already really tired of making. They say you're gonna hate this, and they were absolutely right. 4 circuits total, 2 for robot arms and 2 for the machine, some conveyors, and more cables. Dear God, so many cables. The assembler was absolutely incredible though, as it offered a ton of alternatives to recipes. Like now I can make chests using planks on circuit 8 instead of needing to use flint and logs. I just realized I did forget to explain circuits, didn't I? In each machine, from LV and higher, to solve recipe overlaps, there's ghost circuits within machines that you can scroll so it can know what recipe to work on, rather than accidentally overlap some materials and crafts. Pretty smart, honestly. On day 278, I used 4 LV circuits and a diamond in the assembler to make a quick and dirty portal generator, my key to the Twilight Forest. Yes, this classic dimension is in this mod pack. It's nice. Because Gregtech, you can't just toss a diamond into water and make the portal. No, you need the portal generator to go there. It's a nice progression gate. 4 circuits though is a little rough. This was the first major leap into the next arc of this anime, the Electric Blast Furnace, or EBF arc, starring your local burger as the edgy protagonist who uses the power of friendship to trigger the liberals and make America great again. Does anyone actually watch this far into the video? I can probably say whatever I want. Anyways, into the Twilight Forest. The first thing I wanted to locate was a nickel vein, as the EBF required nickel for one of its major components. I didn't stick around for very long within the forest, just nailed down a nickel vein. I didn't intend on doing its progression just yet, as I didn't have a good weapon or good armor to fight any bosses, and I had no interest in magic right now. I'm more of a tech burger rather than a magic burger. Tech first, magic later. Speaking of tech, back to progression and the EBF arc, now with the obligatory big titty anime waifu. I overhauled my LV setup, adding a few more steam turbines and 16 times 10 cables. My thought process with the 16 times cables was more number means more EU it could store inside the cables. I don't think that's how it works, by the way, but that's what I did. One thing I aimed to do now that I had the Twilight Forest was make new pipes. I had been using exclusively wood, clay, and bronze for my base to move liquids around, but that was changing now to potin. To make potin, I first needed to make the dust, which was made from 2 lead dust, lead being found in the Twilight Forest, 2 bronze dust, and 1 tin dust to make 5 potin dust, which could then be smelted into ingots, thrown in the bending machine to make plates, and then it made into the pipes. What a mouthful. A mouthful of potin. Yum yum. I mined a cryolite vein within the Twilight Forest for the lead within, but this vein also had silver and cryolite, 2 materials I'd use a decent bit, especially the cryolite when I get to the end of LV. Frankly, I was already making really good progress through low voltage. If I was rushing, I'd probably be on medium voltage already. I added a few LV conveyors to my multi-block macerator and an input chest to help with the processing in the background. Really, I could just slap a ton of raw ores into the input chest, goof off and dream of the moon for 45.5 minutes, then come back to a ton of smelted ingots. Easy peasy. You know how earlier I said my steam production wasn't enough? Yeah, it was becoming incredibly noticeable now. It's like seeing your favorite hobby overtaken by narcissists who don't actually care for the hobby itself and only want to ruin it for others. Warhammer, Magic the Gathering, Star Wars. Anyways, there's a few options I could do at this point, and I chose the too little too late option of making high pressure solar boilers. They're far and away the best options for making steam in the entirety of Steam Age, but I honestly didn't know they existed or were any good when actually going through Steam Age. So on day 295, I made my first high-pressure solar boiler, as fortunately I had the silver now to make the triple silver plates required for it. These bad boys made 360 liters of steam per second, versus the regular coal boiler's 300. Not a major increase number-wise, but this one was just free as long as it was sunny. And honestly, it actually was just a better thing, because even if it started to rain, these things really don't lose heat. So it's just almost eternal steam generation. I'd go up to 5 total solar boilers by the end of this video, but it still wasn't enough production. I did sleep into day 300 and started work on another idea that I had to bump up my steam, going back to my good old friends Railcraft and Creosote. There's a multi-block boiler type within Railcraft that uses liquid fuel, red creosote, to generate steam. It was pretty material intensive, so I started with a small one, just 1 firebox and 1 high pressure boiler tank. The reward for this quest gave me some cells of creosote, which I stuck into said 4 multi-block. If you have any experience with machines in this pack, you are yelling at your screen and calling me an idiot right now. But I started to work on piping my creosote up from the steel tank, but I wanted to do a quick test run of the firebox using cells of water. As it turns out, awkwardly, I forgot the fundamental rule of steam machines. Do not, and I mean do not, put water into a hot machine. I made it so long without an explosion, I was actually pretty proud of myself until this point. Oh well, everyone has their first explosion. It happens to all of us. After I fixed all the damages, which wasn't actually too much, I started to work on a bigger buffer tank for all my steam. I figured that more buffer means more time to use steam, so I set out to make a 9x9x8 iron tank. I do a few beach episodes in this anime arc, and making a few multi-block tanks was one of my many beach episodes. To get distracted from working on this iron tank, I had been recommended by a friend to automate oxygen and hydrogen with an LV electrolyzer, so I set up small iron tanks just for those, prepping for when I did the automation setup. It took me until the night of day 311 to finish this big buffer tank. You can tell it's night because it's red. This tank would have taken way longer, but I had the assembler now and access to its new recipe of 2 iron plates on circuit 20 to make a tank wall, saving me so many screws and cutting the time down to a fraction of what it would have been. Love the assembler, man. If there's any tips I could give for this mod pack, it's to always use assembler alternatives to things, especially circuit parts. Next up, I rebuilt the liquid-fueled firebox, but this time went for a bigger one, 4 fireboxes and 8 boiler tanks. This was plenty for now, but I wouldn't hook it all up just yet. I wanted to let the creosote build more. The pressure of having only 50 days left was now starting to become more apparent to me as I was making this new boiler, so I then did the thing of automating oxygen and hydrogen creation. To explain it simply, I put a water tank in the wall of this floor and piped the water into an electrolyzer with clay pipes. I had cells inside the electrolyzer which would be able to hold liquids that were produced. These cells were for hydrogen, and the oxygen was just pulled directly from the electrolyzer to be pumped into its own tank. A fluid canner pulled the hydrogen from the cells and it went into its own dedicated tank, and I used a conveyor to return the cells to the electrolyzer. This would be a passive automation that needed only a single steam turbine to run, one 2x cable for power, and it would just make me oxygen and hydrogen at a ratio of 2 hydrogen and 1 oxygen for free. All this wouldn't see much use yet, but I'd use the oxygen a good amount in year 2 of this run, both for polyethylene creation and to make ingots smelt faster in my EBF. But that's for the next arc of Gregtech the anime, but we still have the rest of this season left to go. I set up the railcraft boiler next and made sure to input water first and not fuel first so I wouldn't get yet another explosion. I then took some time to hook up my fancy schmancy new potent pipes to my creosote tank to pull creosote from it to the boiler. Not hooked up and turned on just yet, as I hadn't automated a few other things first, namely pulling creosote from my coke ovens into the tank. Now we resume coke oven automation with a new machine to make a crop manager. I flick between projects constantly, the downside to recording roughly an hour or 2 a day. This crop manager thing I was making was totally broken. It took a single amp of LV power to harvest crops in a 11 by 11 by 5 space around it, which includes something I never discussed until now, IC2 crop sticks, which I only used for ore berries until now. The use of these crop sticks and crop manager here is to farm 1 trillion logs to automate charcoal and creosote. In day 329, I used the assembler to make crop sticks, where I could plant stuff like seeds and saplings onto. For this automation, I used spruce saplings on these crop sticks to make them into spruce bonsais. The crop manager could harvest these to produce 2 things and only 2 things: spruce logs and spruce saplings. No apple sticks or Vietnamese soldiers. I'd use a chest and hopper below the crop manager to collect these logs and use tin item pipes with conveyors to move all the logs into the coke ovens. I like to be very compact with my bases, so it was starting to get a bit cramped. Straight up have a plot of farmland inside my base. It was all set up pretty nicely, so now let's get back to business to defeat the Huns and make the EBF. The major thing I was missing right now was mica, an ore used to make EBF components. Very important. Totally found a vein on like day 10 and lost it when my ore map got wiped on porting this world to the Technic launcher. So during the day, I hunted for a vein very unsuccessfully, and during the night for the next few days, I did progression. I made an LV alloy smelter, which was just an upgrade to the steam one, but can make new ingots like the Cooper nickel ingot. Cooper nickel ingot? Like the Cupro nickel ingot. That took me 5 times to say, kind of embarrassing. With the nickel I'd found earlier and copper, I could make this ingot. It would become wire later on for Cupro nickel coil blocks using the EBF. I also eventually found a mica vein a good distance away and decimated it for as much mica as my grubby stained burger fingers could grab, processed it all into dust, and got back to work. I turned on my RC firebox to input the creosote finally and didn't get an explosion. Nice, I call that a win. We all need wins when it comes to Gregtech. I was running out of steam when processing, so the firebox needed to be turned on. I made 2 more LV machines, the LV mixer to mix a bunch of crap, and the LV fluid extractor to turn ingots into molten crap. In the mixer, 3 mica dust and 2 raw rubber dust turn into mica-based pulp. This pulpy crap will be used in a moment as I use the fluid extractor on some tin to turn it into molten tin. I made another multi-block tank as a backup for when my EBF would be to take a short break from the EBF work, then got right back to it. I combined iron and nickel in an alloy smelter to make Invar, then used it to make frame boxes, then used said frame boxes and Invar plates to make heat-proof machine casings. At this point, I'd say I was about halfway done with the EBF, and so I would start rushing to get it finished. Day 342 had me make the EBF controller, and for some reason it completed the quest, not sure why. For the reward, I took the weird looking tape. Absolutely no idea what it was used for, but it looked weird, so I took it. In the alloy smelter, mica-based pulp and quartzite dust makes mica insulator sheets. Oh yeah, I did also find a quartzite vein in another way earlier, I just skipped it in this script. In the bending machine, mica insulator sheets turned into mica insulated foil. The foil, molten tin, and 2x cupro-nickel cables in the assembler made cupro-nickel coil blocks, 16 of them for the EBF. I also made low voltage coils for the energy hatches I'd make in a bit. It's a process, just listen to the burger vamp for a while. I made an LV distillery and used creosote to make lubricant. I'd use the lube in a bit on my anime waifu life-size plush, but first I made a muffler hatch, maintenance hatch, and an input and output hatch to complete all those and mark them off. This was all I needed for the EBF for now, minus one small thing. The waifu pill is Mikasa, by the way. I'd forget something, but I still put the EBF together most of the way on day 346. I was missing a second LV energy hatch though. I had one, but I needed 2 of these hatches because the EBF quest and the timing of this EBF quest is evil. This is a medium voltage machine that you have to power in low voltage. So I made the second hatch, then a toolbox to help with fixing issues with the machines. When you first make a multi-block at low voltage and above, it comes with a list of problems and a tool associated with said problem. This toolbox, when clicked on the maintenance hatch, fixed many of the issues if said tool was inside the toolbox, which was pretty nice. I was missing a single tool though, the soldering iron. Lengthy side quest time. I could run the electric blast furnace with a single issue left, but it will require much more power. It already needs MV power at LV to run, as that was the challenge it presented. Run an MV multi-block at LV. Either you do it here, or you don't beat this pack. To make the soldering iron, I needed a lithium battery. As usual with Gregtech, however, there's a solution to any problem, and this problem, the quartz was a solution. I could use another machine to extract lithium from the nether quartz, so I'd spend some time in the nether to get enough quartz. Take a shot every time I say quartz. I made an LV thermocentrifuge and an LV canning machine. Both are needed to make this damn battery. In the nether, I found a tetrahedrite vein, as to make the battery whole I needed antimony, found through processing this tetrahedrite. Not sure what else tetrahedrite was for. At long goddamn last, on day 352, I completed the soldering iron and fixed the final issue with my EBF. The next few days would see me making 4 steam turbines to power the EBF, as it needs 4 amps of LV power to run, 2 amps per energy hatch. Of course, I made a fatal mistake that cost me several days and a ton of materials. You probably already spotted it, but I won't say what the issue is just in case you haven't spotted it and want to guess in the comment sections. On day 354, I made the 4th turbine and attempted to smelt an item. I did everything right except for a single thing, and I spent the next few days tearing the sesame seeds from my bun out about it. My goal was to smelt aluminum, the main metal for MV Age, which was next. To get the materials to smelt up aluminum, I centrifuged cryolite, the ore that was in the Twilight Forest that I actually had a lot of now. Centrifuging the impure dust gave an 11% chance to make alumina dust, along with the 100% chance for cryolite dust. In LV, this was the only method I could see for alumina dust. 10 alumina dust and 5 cryolite dust, and the EBF can make 4 aluminum ingots. I'd lose an embarrassing amount of both in my attempts to run the EBF, so I added 3 more steam turbines over the course of the next few days, as I thought it was just a power issue. But I just kept having these issues, and the solution was really simple. I asked my friend, and the answer that they gave me was so silly I'm still embarrassed by it. The muffler on the top of the electric blast furnace was covered by blocks. It needed 3 blocks of air above it. Feeling so stupid, I cleared it, and lo and behold, I made my very first aluminum ingots. Quest complete, getting ready for Tier 2 MV. At this point, it was day 360, so frankly, I had one thing left to do as I was smelting up a good amount of aluminum. Finish the damn coke oven automation. Blech. It took me the rest of these 5 days, mostly because I kept getting distracted, and also made more coke ovens with the alloy smelter recipe. With the LV alloy smelter, I could use just a clay ball in a sand to make a coke oven brick. It's pretty nice. I tried pushing to MV, realized that's stupid because I need 2 really rare materials, and just settled back to the coke ovens. Hoppers into item pipes so I could avoid conveyors, all connected to a tank and a chest for creosote and charcoal output. Stocking up on charcoal for a plan in year 2, benzene. This work on hoppers and pumps lasted all the way to the end, actually going about 3 minutes into year 2, as I thought it would do day 365 and then year 2, but it instead did day 364 into year 2, day 0. My bad. This automation was fortunately complete for these coke ovens, and I really wouldn't have to worry about it again. Crop manager to harvest logs, 10 item pipes to deposit logs into the coke ovens, LV pumps with pipes to pull creosote into the big steel tank, and hoppers with 10 item pipes for the charcoal. Perfectly automated. With this relatively satisfying end to the year with actually powering the EBF, automating a few key materials, and stockpiling ingots for next year, I can wrap up this whole video with discussing what I've done in year 2 so far, as I've recorded a good bit ahead, so let's talk. In year 2, I've gotten to day 127 and I've set up a few things. A new storage method, polyethylene automation from oil, benzene power using a pyrolyzed oven and a church of benzene. So, if you have any tips or suggestions for things to do, please let me know. I'm always looking for improvements or cheeses to do. I've updated to 2.8 as well, so make sure to give me any nice tips for that version. Not too much to discuss, as I'd rather keep a bulk of the details to the year 2 video, which I'm planning on releasing eventually. A huge thank you to all of you still watching this video. This project started in January of 2025, and I couldn't have made it through without all your support. Please applaud yourself for making it this far into the video, and I hope to see you all again. Thank you all for coming and watching. Do the usual support things that all YouTubers annoy you with. I am Bedrock Burger, the newest YouTuber obsessed with Gregtech, signing off.